Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I am Jackula.
And we are going to talk about Godzilla Kong, the New Empire.
Not that old empire. This is the new empire.
This is the new empire.
This is the new one.
And it doesn't strike back. I guess it technically does in the plot of the movie. It is technically striking back.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Because it's a new empire, but it's also an old empire. Anyway, we'll get into it. This movie is the latest entry in the Monsterverse. It is directed by Adam Wingard, who also directed the last one, Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, unlike the last one, this one is mainly about Godzilla and Kong teaming up together to face a new foe. And this new foe is the Scar King, the old emperor of the apes who has been a tyrant for fucking centuries. And he is accidentally unleashed in this movie. And now it is up to our dynamic duo to defeat them. Which one do you think would be the Robin in this equation? Would it be King Kong?
What this really is this is like Batman teaming up with Nightwing again. Kong ain't no Robin. I'm a Godzilla man, but I'm not gonna disrespect King Kong.
Fair.
Not like that. He's more the Nightwing, while Godzilla's more like Batman with even worse anger issues.
You could even go with Superman and Batman, with like King Kong being Batman. Like you could,
I
mean, it's not entirely one-to-one because King Kong is super powerful. You know, he's got the strength.
He's got legit superpowers. You know.
So this movie is a fucking blast. I had a great time with it. It is a movie that is more in line with like the later Showa movies where they got like super ridiculous with like over-the-top characters and plots.
Yeah. This is very much in line with things like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and how ridiculous that shit got.
Godzilla versus Gigan.
Yeah.
That movie famously had a plot in which alien cockroaches are trying to take over the Earth using two alien space monsters that they're controlling via a theme park and a signal they're sending out through a tower they built to look like Godzilla. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
This movie is about as ridiculous as that, but it goes way more over the top. This is the movie where they go deep into the Hollow Earth stuff, which they've been teasing for the last few movies and finally showed us with Godzilla vs. Kong, and then kind of explored a little bit with Monarch, the Legacy of the Monsters show. But this is the one where they go deep into it.
Yeah.
So deep into it that King Kong discovers a Hollow Earth under Hollow Earth. It's like Inception, man.
Yeah.
We're going deeper, Leo.
There's a woman being run over by a train at the bottom of this shit.
100%. King Kong's gonna have to find out if that top's still spinning.
Yeah.
If you're not on board for the ridiculousness and you wanted something a little bit more grounded, like Godzilla -1 or even Godzilla 2014, this is not going to be the movie for you. This is if you liked the last movie, Godzilla vs. Kong, or if you liked any of the Showa stuff.
Yeah. I would say it was more in line with King of the Monsters, but like King of the Monsters was a little more serious.
King of the Monsters had a little bit more of a serious tone. The characters in this movie are far more like overtly comedic relief.
Yeah, this is the funniest of the Monsterverse films.
It reminds me more of like how in the original Godzilla vs. Kong, the characters are all insanely funny.
Yes.
Well, it's King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah,
which, by the way,
the 60s one.
I did a video on this very channel, and if you have not checked it out yet, you should go check it out. But I actually did a Blood Splattered Cinema on the original King Kong versus Godzilla, which was a satire, which is why it's so comedic.
Well, yeah, it's one of the things that doesn't really come across in the dub of that movie, but that's why in that one, they're making all those
over the top exaggerated jokes. It is a comedy. This movie isn't like a straight up comedy. It's more like the kind of action blockbusters you've seen from like Marvel, where they're like, you know, the characters are making jokes. They're not taking themselves too seriously.
Or like Bad Boys.
Or Bad Boys is another good one.
Yeah.
Bad Boys is another good one. King Kong and fucking Godzilla kind of have like a buddy cop thing going on here, even though there is no dialogue shared between them.
Yeah. There's no English dialogue. There's a lot of
You can feel the buddy cop angst between them with every fucking scene they're in together.
Dude, there's this great scene where King Kong is like by the pyramids and Godzilla's over on the Rock of Gibraltar.
That's right.
And they're just yelling at each other like, fuck you! Fuck you! The minute Godzilla gets over to Kong, there's this immediate feeling of like, did not tell you if you gonna show up in my hood again, it's gonna fuck you up! boom.
Something I was actually surprised at is despite this movie being super over the top, despite it being more overtly comedic at times, it still had a heart to it. This movie goes full bore with King Kong as this lonely, last of his kind character.
Yeah, his angst.
There's a whole segment of this movie that's dedicated to him having a toothache.
Yeah.
Which is one of the most relatable things a kaiju has ever had happen to them. It's pretty great.
I felt like really bad because like I had this cap way in the back of my jaw. Right as we went into the theater, it came off. And then I go in and I see Kong's got toothache and I'm like, yeah, I'm with you, buddy.
He's trying to fucking eat that dino dog thing he fucking killed, and it's like hurting his tooth, and you're like, oh man, I've been there.
Yo, yeah.
I've been there. So you have that emotional core of him being lonely, trying to find somewhere he belongs, to quote Linkin Park. You also have Gia, who was the little girl in the last movie with the kind of psychic connection with King Kong.
Yeah, the one who speaks in sign language.
And speaks in sign language with him. The last of her people that used to live on Skull Island before Skull Island got destroyed, which, by the way, this movie actually explains finally how Skull Island got destroyed. The last movie just kind of glossed over it.
Yeah.
But she returns in this movie, and she is also super lonely, but she's more lonely in a crowd. King Kong is lonely in Hollow Earth because it's just him.
Yeah.
She is going to school back up on the surface and just can't relate to anybody, not part of this culture, and can't connect with it.
Yeah. She's really uncomfortable.
Exactly. And there's kind of like a parallel thing going between the two of them throughout the entire movie. And I thought the heart of those two characters actually worked for me.
Yeah, that was the emotional heart of the movie, which is, these two characters are lonely.
Yep.
One's a fish out of water, and the one is literally by himself all the time.
Exactly.
You know?
And they're both the last of their kind.
Yeah.
Or so they think. As this plot obviously deals with both of them discovering that maybe they're not the last of their kind after all. And I thought that really worked. You're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, you're gonna have a good time, but it's not gonna leave like a lasting emotional impact on you the way Godzilla -1 did.
No, it ain't that kind of movie.
It ain't that kind of movie. It's also not much of a social commentary kind of movie. King of the Monsters had more of an overt environmental thing going on.
Yeah, it had an environmental message, it had the anti-nuclear war message.
This one doesn't really have one. It is more just about loneliness. It's more about the characters than about the socio-political situation.
Yeah.
But it works, and I enjoyed it. There is a return of a classic Toho monster. We'll talk about it in the spoiler section, because there's a lot to talk about there, actually.
Yes.
There's also another hidden kaiju that you discover in this movie that is pretty cool in and of themselves.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that in the spoiler section, too. Sometimes you sit there and you're watching a movie, and you just have this moment of like, this is why I go to the movies, right? I had that twice in the last few months, and they're both with Godzilla movies, but from completely different spectrums.
Yes.
Like with Godzilla -1, it's like, this is why I go to the movies for like the emotional reasons, like the deep, intense emotional connections. And this one, it was like, this is why I go to the movies for like popcorn entertainment.
Yeah, no, there's the whole lot in this movie that is just basically like, yeah, get up, Godzilla, you gotta kick his ass.
I do want to mention just a couple criticisms with this movie. There's some plot convenience in the latter half of the movie that made me go, okay, well, that's a little convenient at times. I was willing to roll with it because it had pretty awesome results, but it is super convenient that certain things happen the way they do at the end. I don't know if you noticed it, but there was a point in this movie where the movie kind of stopped dead in its tracks to be a Volkswagen commercial.
No, I didn't notice this.
Okay, so there's this one scene in which Jaya and her mom are having like a conversation after she just had a bad day at school.
Yeah.
They turn around and get in their car, and it cuts to this wide shot that looks straight up like it's out of a commercial. Scene makes sure to see them both get in the car. Not quite as egregious as iRobot with the shoes.
Oh God, no, that was
not quite as egregious as that, but it was a moment where I went, Jesus Christ, what do you think you are, a Transformers movie? Come on, man.
Oh, that hurt.
You're better than this.
That hurt.
You're better than this, King Kong. I also want to point out that compared to the last movie, Godzilla has a lot less screen time in this one. Very much a presence throughout the entire movie, but this is one of those Godzilla movies where he kind of lurks in the background until the final act, and then in the final act, he's in all the action scenes.
Yeah, like Godzilla versus Hedorah.
Yeah, Godzilla versus Hedorah, or even Godzilla versus Gigan again. A majority of Godzilla versus Gigan is the human characters dealing with the cockroach aliens. Occasionally cut to Godzilla and Anguirus Retrodomus traveling to the theme park, but it takes them the whole movie to get there. At the end, they fight King Ghidorah and they fight Gigan. It's a lot more like that with Godzilla here.
A little relieved, but also slightly disappointed that they did not have like subtitles when Kong and Godzilla were roaring at each other.
So it's exactly like Godzilla versus Gigan?
Yeah, so it'd be exactly like that.
That would have been funny. It might have been too far. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those, at this point, Adam Wingard has gone so over the top with it that I'm willing to go where he's willing to go.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. In this movie, there's a point in which Godzilla, like, curls up in the Roman Colosseum. If he fits, he sits.
Yeah, no, that's just where Godzilla sleeps now. He just sleeps in the Roman Colosseum now.
It's fucking adorable.
Yeah.
Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, Godzilla Kong the New Empire is currently available in theaters. If you want to go see it, go check it out in theaters. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers. Alrighty then, so the first major spoiler of this movie is Mothra returns in this movie after her untimely death in King of the Monsters. Logic of it is a little wonky. King of the Monsters kind of established that one of her eggs had survived.
Yeah.
So we always thought she was going to return from that egg, but in this movie, she returns in a completely different way. It's almost like they kind of forgot the egg. I don't know what's up with that, but it didn't bother me because the way she comes back in this movie feels very much like a Mothra movie. The ancient mystical civilization and their ability to summon Mothra, this goddess who protects them.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised that when we get to the ancient civilization and they're summoning Mothra, that they didn't actually do the Mothra, the Masura, like they didn't all just do that.
That is one criticism I also have of this movie, and I've had it ever since Bear McCreary stopped doing the movies after Godzilla King of the Monsters. Bear McCreary in King of the Monsters did a great job of incorporating all the old Toho themes into his movie. And I don't feel like Junkie XL does the same thing. He kind of does his own thing. I like Junkie XL's synthwave rock and roll vibe, but I kind of wish he incorporated like the classic Godzilla theme and stuff more. And apparently in an early cut of this movie, they actually had a different monster in Mothra's place. It was a dragon creature called Phosphora. And the reason why they were doing this is because at the time they weren't sure if they were going to get the rights to Mothra. So they did a version of the movie that didn't have Mothra in it just in case. But they always intended Mothra to be there. But that's also why there's certain trappings of Mothra that aren't in this movie, like the twins or most likely the egg too.
Yeah.
And things like that, because it was intended to be Mothra, but they couldn't do it overtly as Mothra because if it turns out they didn't get the rights, then they would have to pluck those things out of the movie anyway.
Right, they'd have to go back and refilm as opposed to change the effects.
Exactly. So in the final movie, obviously they did get the rights to Mothra and Mothra was put in that movie, but there was this false rumor that went around apparently that Phosphora was the original intended monster. No, it was a placeholder.
I don't think would have worked as well.
It would not have worked as well because everything that Mothra does in this movie works because it's Mothra.
Yeah.
Mothra is the one with the connection with Godzilla, so Mothra can calm down Godzilla and get him to work with King Kong and all that shit, which is basically what Mothra's role in this movie is. She's basically the one who comes in and is like, all right, boys, stop it. We gotta work together, which was also her role in Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits Mothra's modus operandi.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically Gia, when she discovers this civilization underneath the Hollow Earth, because again, there's Hollow Earth, and then there's apparently a Hollow Earth under a Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
And his pet dragon Shimu, which we'll talk about in a minute, and this other human civilization, which are the descendants of the tribe that lived on Skull Island.
Yeah.
So they're basically her people. She goes down there and finds out that they've been summoning her because she was prophesized. She is the one that is going to bring Mothra back. And my only sadness with this entire plot is I really wanted her to go down there and find out there was an identical her down there. They're like connected somehow, magic shit. It didn't bother me that they didn't do that, but it would have been cool.
One of my favorite scenes is the first confrontation that Kong and Godzilla have in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Wrecking ancient Egypt. They're
Absolutely.
wrecking those pyramids.
Those pyramids are fucked.
Oh yeah, they're done. And like all Kong's trying to do is be like, hey, bro, I'm just trying to talk. Godzilla's having none of it.
I actually really appreciate the scenes in this movie, much like that scene.
Yeah.
Which are like non-verbal scenes with the kaiju. King Kong discovers his own people. Kind of befriends this baby Kong. I think they just call him Mini Kong in the movie. Who's a bastard. Who's a complete...
he's a little asshole.
He's a little asshole who betrays Kong multiple times until finally Kong stands up for him, and then he's like, oh, you're actually nice, so I'm gonna be on your side and help you out from now on. I'm gonna be a bastard on behalf of you now. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like the God of War reboot game, where it's Kratos and his son. If Kratos' son was more of an asshole.
Yeah.
Where he's just constantly like, don't you fucking do that again.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Like,
there's no dialogue in these scenes. It's just monkey grunts.
Yeah. Right about the point I was like, it's been 10 minutes of monkeys grunting at each other. I think we need a cut here.
Fair.
You know, and then it happened.
Fair. They understood that it was testing your patience.
Yeah.
I get it. And also when he first confronts Scar King. Okay, so going into this movie, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about Scar King because on paper, the idea of another Kong sounded kind of boring.
Yeah.
But they do two things here that actually make Scar King a great villain, and I actually really enjoyed watching him. First off, he is just a complete smug asshole.
Yes.
And he's kind of fun to watch. Like, he's just straight up doing like those Yakuza looking down on you poses all the time, and just the way he carries himself is fucking fun to watch.
He's as big as Kong, but he's really lanky.
He's lanky, he's fast, he's the kind of guy who outsmarts you in a fight more than outstrengths you. And the other thing they did was they gave him Shimo, who is a Godzilla-like dragon, but on all fours, and like it creates ice ages. Remember how King Ghidorah could create storms everywhere? This one creates ice ages. In fact, I'm 90% sure, and we'll see if the movies ever confirm this, that it is the creature that put Ghidorah under all that ice and froze it there.
Oh, yeah.
It just makes the most sense. But it is bigger than both King Kong and Godzilla, and it is massive, and it is obviously how the Scar King controls everyone and controls his monkey empire. The confrontation between him and King Kong, it does go a little long, I agree.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it's full of some of my favorite moments. The moment that one guy just kind of gets in Kong's face and then Kong just fucking decks him.
Yeah.
The moment he fucking actually hurts Scar King and Scar King immediately acts like a little bitch and summons his dragon.
Yeah.
I fucking love that sequence. Like, it did go on a little long, but I enjoyed the shit out of it. And also, it made it so that when they actually defeat Scar King in the end, it's insanely satisfying.
Yes.
Because we're talking about a guy who's not just normal kaiju villain. He's like a straight up tyrant. He's got like a harem of fucking female apes cowering in the background. So he's kind of like Ape and Morton Joe.
Yeah.
With these like harem of apes that he obviously like fucking rapes on the side.
Yes.
Pushing people's fathers into fucking lava and shit. And he's got like slaves that he's whipping with his fucking whip chain that he's got.
Yep.
Which is obviously like the spine of some sort of creature he defeated. He also takes Kong's axe, by the way.
Yeah.
Kong does actually find a really cool way to counter some of this, but it is where a lot of the plot convenience in this movie happens.
Yeah, a lot of the plot convenience surrounds the power glove that fucking Kong gets.
There's a point in this movie where Kong's arm is fucked up from his fight with Scar King. So, one of the coolest human characters in this movie, and a great addition, and I hope returns in the next movie, Trapper, played by Dan Stevens.
Using his real accent.
He reveals that Monarch created a prototype power glove, essentially, that is supposed to be a mechanical weapon that Kong could use so that he could finally defeat Godzilla, because they learned through his fight with Godzilla that Kong might need help. So,
yeah. He can't, like, take Godzilla's straight up fight.
You know, this might be a tease for a future Mechani-Kong. We'll see. Who knows? They attached that glove to his hand, but here's where the convenience comes in. It was a glove that they made, but then the government decommissioned because they didn't like the idea of making any kaiju stronger than they already were, because they're already a danger to national security and shit. But the glove was apparently already left in Hollow Earth. Dan Stevens is like, okay, I'm gonna go get that and then bring it back and then we'll put it on Kong. And I'm like, wait, hold on. hold on. We watched you take the whole movie to get from there to where you are now.
Yeah.
And you're going to do that same trek in about 5 minutes while Scar King is supposedly on his way to this place. And Kong got to this place within 5 minutes in and of himself from the Scar King's lair. So I'm like, I don't know about the timing of this. It's a little...
Yeah, and he also fixes the plane while he's at it.
Yeah,
shit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those like, okay, there's some wonky logic here. But the power glove itself is so fucking awesome, and it finally gives King Kong a little bit of those electricity powers that he had in King Kong versus Godzilla in 1962. And it was kind of cool to see them nod to that.
Yeah.
It is not an infinity glove. I know everyone's making that joke. It's not an infinity glove. It's more like he has a broken arm, so he's got, a disability device.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like an arm brace that shoots electricity,
One that can knock out Godzilla.
Yes.
In one of the greater scenes of this movie. Godzilla is a dick in this movie, by the way.
Oh my god, yeah. He's just such an angry asshole.
There's an argument to be made. He's a bit of a tyrant himself.
Oh yeah.
Okay, when he killed the giant spider, which I think is named like Skrilla or Skilla or something like that. When he killed the giant spider was attacking Rome. Fuck that spider.
Yeah, whatever.
But Tiamat was just chilling in its lair. It wasn't attacking anybody.
Yeah.
It was just chilling in its lair, absorbing radiation and just, having a gay old time. And he just fucking storms in and is like, fuck you, I need this radiation.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this radiation from you. You're my way, you're dead now. Fuck you.
Godzilla has 2 kaiju fights before the final fight with Scar King.
Yeah.
And before his fight with King Kong, that leads to the final fight with Scar King. So even though he's just kind of lurking in the background and he has less screen time than previous movies, he gets 2 fights out of that screen time.
Yeah.
So.
He's in the movie. He's just not as central to the plot.
In many ways, this really is Skull Island 2. It's a follow-up to Kong's story from that. And I'm okay with that because, Godzilla got 2 movies.
Oh,
Kong
yeah.
One.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Adam Wingard has said in interviews that if he comes back for a 3rd one, which given the box office results for this, I'm pretty sure he's going to come back. The 3rd one will focus on Godzilla the same way this one focused on Kong. I got my fingers crossed for like Alien Invasion.
Bring Gigan in.
Hell yeah.
Some shit.
Gigan would be great. It'd be cool if they found a way to put Hedorah in here. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe even bring back Ghidorah. Who knows? I am down for whatever they want to do because this movie was so goddamn fun and it's a breath of fresh air in what has otherwise been a shitty year.
Feels like playing with your toys, man.
It does. It really does feel like
Godzilla comes at you with the fucking fire.
100%, and I love that.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to Bernie and Trapper. Those 2 are hilarious together. I know for some people they grated on their nerves. They did not grate on my nerves. Bernie and Trapper, I want them to come back in another movie together because their dynamic just worked for me.
Yeah.
And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. Also, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, and we will certainly need those Patreons going forward. So help us out in any way you can. If you made it this far into the video, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag Godzilla fits, he sits. Use that hashtag in the comment however you please. That way I know, that way Jack knows, that way the whole world knows that you watched this video all the way through. And reminder, if you like hearing us talk about Godzilla, be sure to check out our vlog on Godzilla -1 or the recent video I made on King Kong versus Godzilla in 1962. Check out either of those videos and I'm sure you will have a blast. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, peace out and we'll catch y'all later.